hi folks, thanks for being here today once again. Just firstly to staffing, and my apologies, I missed the first few minutes. So
feels like only budget week.
Urquhart has, beg your pardon?
It feels like only budget week that we were
Indeed.
last together.
Indeed. Can the department please provide an update on the total level of full-time equivalent staffing, please?
Certainly, Senator.
Thank you.
So in terms of our paid full-time equivalent staffing, as at the 30th of April, we have 2,176.1, and that number includes the Director of National Parks as well.
Okay, thank you. And do you have a breakdown there for the number of full-time equivalents in the Compliance and Enforcement Division?
I have a breakdown for the division itself, Senator, but not to the level of detail just for the compliance officers. But when they appear tomorrow, they will be able to give you those details.
Okay. Yes, I am. Thank you. Sorry, I went to the more specific one.
So you do
So
have
the
that
whole
for the
division, yes.
EACD, yeah. Thanks. Sorry.
So full-time equivalent for EACD is 171 FTE.
171. Okay, so I've got a note here that in May last year it was 236 full-time equivalents. That's now come down some 60-odd folk. What was the cause of that reduction? Which budgetary measure triggered that?
Senator, I'm just going to check,
reduction?
just in terms of the numbers, there sometimes can be a little bit of confusion with headcount and full-time equivalent, and I know that their headcount was over 200 a little while ago, and certainly it's still at 197, but I'll need to go back and actually have a look at that. It's quite possible that there's been some restructure within the division, and that including we had a task force that was being run from EACD, and that task force has now gone back from basically a division size to a branch. That was to do with One Stop Shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the details of any changes within the division, the staff would be able to answer that tomorrow when they appear.
Senator, if I could just ask that number again that you had and what date that was?
I had as at May 2014 that it was 236 full-time equivalents for EACD.
Right, we'll try and establish the
Thank you.
We'll check
provenance of
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so just for compliance and enforcement specifically, you're saying check that tomorrow when they're here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
Senator.
great. And do you have any figures on conditions monitoring and approvals monitoring before you?
So separate numbers on those issues. No, Senator, I don't have the breakup
Okay.
further down than at the division level,
Okay.
as the divisions are able to manage their own budget and to move staff around as they need.
So can I just check, will that be in 1.5 that I have to
Yeah.
ask both
Yes.
of those? Okay, thank you. Can I come back to a mention that you made of the One Stop Shop task force, which you say was division size and is now branch size? Can you put some figures around those descriptions? How many folk were there and how many are there now?
That's another question, Senator, that I think will need to be answered by the officers tomorrow.
Yeah. In rough terms, so there was the Regulatory Reform Task Force, Senator, which had a division head and a number of Band 1 SES assistant secretaries, so there would have been 3 at least there. And then it wasn't a full-size division in the sense of some of the other larger divisions in the place. There would have been about 30 to 40 people is my
so
recollection,
about
but
30 to
we'll
40.
confirm that, yeah,
And what's it come down to
at its
now?
peak. So those activities have been absorbed back into the Environmental Assessments and Compliance Division and now constitute a branch within that division, and they'd be about 20 to 30 people, but we'll confirm that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
I might just explain so that the peak workload there was because of the negotiations of the bilateral approvals. That there are now 6 draft approval bilaterals have been completed, so the workload for that team has come down.
Those draft bilaterals haven't yet finished their public consultation. Are you implying that the public consultation won't require as much
No,
staffing?
and I'm not, Senator. I'm just saying that the initial drafting of those documents was was a very intensive piece of work, and there's ongoing work in responding to the comments, and they're draft, as I said, they're draft documents, and they're not finalised.
Okay,
but-
so ongoing work, roughly how many people are looking through those
I think we'll have to come back
comments?
tomorrow, Senator. If that's,
Okay. Okay, thank you. So can I just appreciate the update on those figures, and it seems to me on the figures that I've got that we've tracked through this process that there's been an overall staff reduction. Are you able to quantify the reduction in overall staffing?
Yes, Senator. We've actually reduced our staffing by just over 400 of our ongoing staff over the last 18 months.
Sorry,
and that is
18 months, was it?
around
Can I
18
just get
months.
Hansard to turn the mics up a bit? I think I'm a bit hard of hearing. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. So with the reduction, it's been achieved through a combination of voluntary redundancies, the capability round that we've spoken about before at estimates, and also natural attrition. So that's employee-initiated departures. And at the moment, we're tracking within our budget, and we're right for going into next financial year.
Okay, so if you've lost about 400 odd, I've got 430 here on the budget figures. That's about 16%. Are you still tracking to be a total reduction of 670 by 16-17, which would be a 26% reduction in the department's workforce?
Senator, we're already almost there because the reduction also occurred before the last 18 months. So we also lost a considerable amount of staff earlier in 2013. So at this point, we're tracking on target. There will be a further reduction in 16-17, but we think it's around 100 staff that we might need to reduce by at that stage. But it also depends on future budget decisions, so it's a little bit too early to tell.
So are you saying that you've lost more than 16% of your workforce?
Yes,
currently?
Senator, we have.
Do you have a figure that more accurately represents the loss?
I'll have to actually come back, Senator. I only have more recent figures around the last 18 months, so we can have a look at what happened before that.
Yeah, thanks very much, because it's certainly an alarming reduction, and of course right at the time when the ANAO is scrutinising the ability of the staff to conduct appropriate compliance and enforcement work, it's alarming that there's still losses. So I'll pursue that tomorrow if there has been significant losses from that particular section. I want to move now to the DGR inquiry. Was it the Minister that referred that inquiry to the Reps Committee? It's my understanding, I'm just double checking.
I don't recall, Senator, but others at the table may.
Senator, I think my colleagues are going to provide some more detail, but my understanding is the committee itself established and got going the inquiry that they're undertaking, but they may have discussed the matter with the Minister.
Senator, the Minister Hunt wrote to the committee requesting the inquiry take place.
I beg your pardon, Senator.
Okay, so it wasn't,
Apologies.
it wasn't
My
referral
colleague
by
is
the
not
Minister.
quite across the details that I am.
Me.
Yes.
That's right, I'm glad we
It's
have
all
it
right.
here. Thank you for your presence.
However, the exact practices of House of Representatives committees are probably
Are a mystery
something
to
that
us
none of
all.
us
Sure, indeed.
are precise on.
Indeed.
So they may have needed their own motion or agreement of the chamber or otherwise to
I'd
instigate
hazard a
it. I'm
guess
not
that
sure.
they would.
That's
Did the
correct,
department
yeah.
provide any advice to the Minister relating to that referral?
No, we did not.
You did not?
Senator.
Okay.
Well, not
Have you
prior
provided
to
any
that, no.
advice subsequently?
We're in
to
the
the Minister
process
relating
of.
to that?
I mean, from on a daily basis in terms of the normal course of business and administering the register, the department provides advice through to the Minister. In relation to the inquiry, we're currently we've completed a submission and we're gearing up to make sure we can provide whatever advice and support that the committee needs in undertaking its inquiry.
Thank you. Is that submission public yet?
We'd have to ask the committee, actually.
It was provided provided late last week,
I might
Senator.
call my colleague Ms Musgrave
It
to...
should be up on the
But it-
website
All
by
right,
now.
I'll
but
have a
we'll
look at that,
confirm
thank
today.
you.
Yeah.
So did the department provide any advice to the Minister or to the House of Reps inquiry for that matter on the terms of reference for that inquiry?
Senator, no, we did not.
Right, so where's the Minister got this idea from then, if it's not from you guys?
Senator, I don't know if you've been absent during some of the hearings of this Estimates Committee and not reading the press clips or otherwise. There has been some contestability around the operation of the DGR rules, and we just had yet again a series of questions posed by
Well, there was a series
Senator
of
Canavan.
assertions. There's not been any evidence.
They were a
and surely
series
the
of
department
questions,
would
and
be
Senator
across any
Canavan
actual
cited a
evidence.
number of references in his questions today, as he has on previous occasions. Ultimately, I'm sure you would agree, parliamentary committees are a good means and process of allowing such concerns to be aired and for information to be provided, and ultimately for recommendations of the Parliament to be made to the government, which the government would then consider.
Sure, I happen to think this one is a baseless attack on environment groups, but that's my view, and there's also
That's
been no
okay,
evidence
Senator
to
Waters.
show
I
that there's
happen to
any
think that
problem
some of the
whatsoever,
proposals
but
from
I'm
the
sure
Australian Greens are
inquiry
quite
will find
baseless
that.
as well. So.
I'm sure the inquiry will find that everything is being done above board by the environment groups, and in fact that they deserve more support, not less. So can I just confirm the level of...
That sounds like your opinion, and you're welcome to it, Senator
But
Waters.
I
I
think-
trust the inquiry will move beyond opinions and establish the facts.
Well, let's hope so, because I don't imagine there's actually much
Senator
evidence
Waters,
there.
I think it's time to move on with some questions, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So can I establish what role the department is actually, what support role the department is actually playing in relation to this inquiry? You've done your submission.
I'm
Do you
sure the same as it
anticipate
does
any-
in relation to any parliamentary inquiry, Senator. The department provides submissions, may appear to give evidence, but of course parliamentary inquiries stand alone and are supported, as you well know, by their own secretariats and are autonomous from the arms of government.
Yes.
Senator,
So what support are you providing to the Minister in relation to this inquiry and the
Well,
conduct
just on
of
the
it?
committee first, we have been asked questions from the committee about information, statistical information on the number, how it's changed over time, all those sorts of matters. So we've tried to incorporate all of that material into our submission. As Ms Jensen said, we talked to the Minister of a range of matters, but our focus has not been, in this most recent period, it's been on preparing that submission and getting prepared for our appearance, which I think is the 2nd of June. So we're able to provide the committee with evidence around how we go about administering that law and as much statistical information as we can on how the register's changed over time and those sorts of issues. It's not our job in that submission to advise the committee about the broader policy. It's to just provide as much evidence as we can about how the policy is currently administered and any information the committee seeks for its own deliberations. We provide policy advice to the Minister, and normally we wouldn't go into details about what that advice is, but I can say, I think it's reasonable for me to say, our focus at the moment is on providing that information to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Now, you canvassed earlier in response to some questions about the Charities Act requirements, and I understand it's actually not your purview normally, but appreciate you have some level of familiarity with the statutory structure.
Yep.
So my understanding from the section that you read out earlier is that it is in fact fine for groups who are registered charities to go so far even as to endorse political parties. But my understanding of Senator Canavan's reference was that as long as that's not specifically a purpose
Yes,
of that
that's-
organisation, is that an accurate
I think that is accurate, Senator. I think that's
Summation of
the
those two.
confusion that I'd fallen into there with Senator Canavan. Yes, you're right. It's an activity that can be undertaken
it's
by the
not a
charity, but they can't exist just to be that
Precisely.
activity, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you. And you clarified that about 75% of organisations on the REO are listed as charities and therefore those rules apply to them. What about the other 25? Are there similar rules that apply in relation to political endorsements, which was the issue Senator Canavan was so concerned about?
Well, I was saying to Senator Canavan, those sorts of issues are not expressly prohibited under the existing arrangements. Whether the activity is reasonable or not is always through the eyes of whether the the principal purpose of that organisation is to promotion of activities to restore the natural environment or education and research and those sorts. So it's always through that lens, Senator. There's not a set of activities which you must not. It's really, is your principal purpose those other things? And to the extent that undertaking some of these activities meant that your principal purpose wasn't that, well then that would be the basis upon which an organisation, we might advise the ministers in that case that the organisation's principal purpose isn't that. So it is through that first lens that what is the principal purpose of that organisation.
Thank you. Again, it seems to me that there's pretty much everything's above board, but I understand that's what we have inquiries for. Have there been any evidence that the department has tracked where any groups on that register have in fact endorsed any political party, as opposed to criticise decisions that have a poor impact on the environment, no matter which government is in power?
Senator, I'm not aware of us sort of routinely investigating whether these organisations, the organisations on the register are supporting or engaged in any way with political organisations. But to be absolutely clear, because there's a long history of this register going back to '92 now, I'll take on notice whether any such activities have occurred in the past.
Thank you, because I'm certainly not aware of any myself, but you're saying that's not precluded anyway. Even if there was, that wouldn't be against the rules. Is that correct?
It's not precluded for them to engage with or discuss with those organisations. All the avenues are the ones I've engaged with Senator Canavan in the past. A party can't come along and donate through this organisation as a conduit, if you like, to undertake political activities. There's a set of rules around the operation of the organisation that prevent, for example, a donating party from directing the organisation to do something political. But as long as the organisation is acting independently, according to its constitution, and its constitution reflects the principal purpose, it can undertake a range of activities.
Okay, thanks for your help. Thank you.
Senator Ludlam, have you